Good evening, folks. We are so glad you're here, and we got a full house tonight. So you know this is going to be a busy show with your Big Old Belt Wrestling podcast. We are going live, and we got so much to talk about. We got decisions being made in Australia at AEW Grand Slam. We got NXT Vengeance Day here in DC. We got names being given to people that are different than what they were expected to be. We got titles for WWE that are going to be defended on and decided on the indies. So much going on. Folks, this is going to be a busy next hour, so get ready. We're going to have some fun tonight, folks. Thank you for being here with us tonight. Your Big Old Belt Wrestling podcast starts right now.
Big Old Belt, 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 Big Old Belt. All I really want is that Big Old Belt, 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 Big Old Belt. All I really need, that Big Old Belt.
Hello, everyone. I felt like I was forgetting a little something there in the cold open, but I was not. But I will throw this in right now since this is the first time all five of us have been together since the season 5 premiere. So it is season 5, episode 3 tonight of your Big Old Belt Wrestling podcast. We are so glad you are here with us since we got the whole crew here tonight. I am Will in the upper left corner of your screen. Across from me is our editor-in-chief, Najir Chambers, right there in the dead center top. We got Giant Crab Jamal over there in the upper right. Below him is Damian G down in the Lone Star State, and Silly Celis bringing it around in the lower left. All 5 of the crew here tonight. So we got a lot to talk about, a lot of voices here. So this should be a fast-moving show tonight. Mm-hmm. I'm glad everyone's here with us. Gentlemen, how are you all doing? Now we got the whole crew together for our first time in season 5.
Good to see the 2-3 zone here.
European style basketball, baby. Let's go.
There you go. There you go.
And we got our man Jamal in the Mets gear today for spring training kicking off. So lots of stuff happening. Lots of stuff.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Happy Lunar New Year. All that stuff. It is almost the end of February. So time is flying in 2025. That is for sure. Well, let's get right into it. Because last week at the end of the show, we talked about AEW going to Australia. We talked about AEW Grand Slam, and we had some very specific thoughts on that show going into it. And it was me, Jamal, and Damian last week on here. And we mostly talked about one particular match and how they needed to do something very specific. We were all in agreement on this. We were all on the Harley Cameron train last week. And we were like, damn it, Tony, come hell or high water, make the move, pull the trigger, put the title on Mercedes. It's never going to have a better opportunity than this. You got this unique opportunity in Australia to do it. There's never going to be a better time. And even if you don't have faith in Harley, just do it. And heck, in a couple weeks to get back, you can take it off her in a couple weeks. And as we got to the end of the conversation, I'm pretty sure it was Jamal threw in there, well, knowing Tony, that won't happen. He'll stick to his damn guns, and whatever he had planned, he will not change gears and make a move and put the title on Harley, even if it's just for a couple weeks, even if it's just for a feel-good moment. And last Saturday night came, and Damian, you saw it first. I watched it right after you texted. Yep. Our group chat blew up, and you put one word in there, simply coward. And right away I knew, and it was like, damn it. That man is never going to change from his plan, no matter what it is. He is set in his ways, and Mercedes is still your TBS women's champion. Harley did not win the belt, and I'm not surprised. I don't even know if I'm disappointed. I think I'm just frustrated because, damn it, the opportunity was right there. Damian, I'm going to go to you first since you summed it up with that one word. When you were watching last week, what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts?
I mean, before I even hit you out with the group chat, I let out the biggest F-bomb because I was watching it at my local sports bar. And when I saw the pin, I screamed out WTF, and then I texted y'all. So yes, coward. Okay, we said this last week that he had literally in the palm of his hands the new superstar, the new A1 steak sauce, if you remember that one back in the day. All he had to do was pull the trigger. And what did he do? Nah, that's okay. We still want to set up this Momo versus Mercedes match. And even if it's for 2 weeks, we're going to keep it moving. So waste of a puppet, waste of a music video, waste of us finding out she speaks Chinese, waste of a hot meteor that was about to explode. And of course, for whatever reason, Tony didn't do it. I'm actually really disappointed, Will. You said you don't know if you're disappointed. I am. I'm like the sad dad who thought his kid was going to make the right choice, the right college choice, and then they picked the rival. So that's how I felt. And I honestly don't know if he can fix this now. I think the iron was hot. We said it, and now the moment might have passed. So I'm very disappointed.
All right, Jamal, get in here next. Since you had
So you said the iron was hot, and you're not sure if it still is. I think that fortunately, wrestling fans have the memory of a hummingbird. In the short, wrestling fans' short-term memory is screwed. So, is this the first, missed opportunity? Yes. Will there be another missed opportunity? Of course. Will she be champion someday? Hopefully so. But the problem is that we've seen this happen with young prospects that we thought that they were in a position poised to do a thing, and nothing happened. Barring injury, Will Hobbs should have been a world champion already. Ricky Stark should have been a champion already.
Who?
We obviously were saying, that Takeshita should absolutely be in the conversation right now. And he hasn't been for some reason. My God, why? And he's really stuck to his guns, the same 2 or 3 or 4 people at the top. And then it comes down to, what about these guys? What about these guys that have been there from day one? Or what plan do you have for them? And it's not just about the championship chase. It's about the after effect. How many champions have had a great chase but a bad run? So it's a lot of that in AEW that just makes you go, well, we know how this is going to end. And it is Australia. So between the 2 Australians that are vying for a championship, only one of them going to win. So we knew that was going to be the case because that's traditionally how it goes. So I'm not sad. I'm just disappointed. Maybe my kid did make the wrong college choice, but damn it, I'm going to buy that Chase U, sir. Because that's what he got accepted to. Chase U represent. But really, honestly, where does Harley go from here? And that was the question that we had because of the fact that Mercedes should be vying for the biggest championship ever. She's the CEO, for God's sakes. Tony wins the belt. Okay, fine. Whatever they want to do with the Japanese women, okay, fine. But you could set that up later. This is about the moment right now. And yeah, I think we can all agree that, wrestling, as much as long-term storytelling is a thing, and in the long-term overarching stories, people do remember, people also remember the moments. And wrestling is a series of moments that are indelible that define your company. And when you have those moments, hell, people are still talking about whichever Uso it was in his entrance from Backlash in France, which may have been the moment that started his run up to the top and now winning the Royal Rumble. So, it's that's what it is. And that's, as a fan, what we kind of seen over the years, that this could be a moment. And he let it slip by. So it is what it is.
2 Chainz. We haven't heard from you in a while, so you get in here.
I feel with opportunities like this, it's always the idea that if it wasn't this time and we were all so ready for it, then they're amounting to the next bigger moment. Traditionally, that's what you would think would happen here, but yeah, no faith. So I got him on one hand, gotta tip the hat to Tony for sticking to his guns because he never deviates from the plan. But those feel good moments, I think, are ones, when the stars align, you just have to take it. But I felt like they probably had a discussion of saying, we're going to give it to Tony. We don't want to do the same thing twice. But I don't know. Definitely a missed opportunity is where I land with this.
Sellers, get in here.
And I'll say this, just not just in AEW, but just in wrestling in general. It's been too many opportunities that's been lost that we've all been saying, but it's like we go back and look at what if, and I don't mean to put a pun with, the Disney Plus show, but what if we would have had this, moment? But then what would you have built on it for the following weeks? What have been next for this? But it's just, you always can go, hindsight is 2020 about what can happen. I'm not surprised because Tony, similar to Vince, and I will say this, they tried to stick with their guns of trying to go with their top player who they love and who they brought and investing the money in. So it doesn't surprise me. But there's just so many things that as I'm listening to you guys, it's like when you think about when Sheamus had that moment when he won his first title, or when you think about Kevin Owens when he won his first Universal title, those were moments that shocked us, that propelled stars. And this is what AEW is not doing. They're not propelling stars for these moments. And that's why more people want to leave or get out their contract, because you've built on a promise like we're going to be different, but it ends up being the same thing over and over again. And this is what we get tired of. So at this point, it's like, why even want to watch the product if you know what is going to happen? Wash, rinse, repeat. It's just, if you want to be different, and not saying you have to compete with WWE, but just be in your lane, you got to do things differently. So why not pull the trigger? But it is what it is.
Two things I'll say really quickly is typically, I think when you think about the what if, it's also about like the what now. So when some of these folks that we very much are firm and set that this is their opportunity, this is their moment, no examples so quickly jump into my head right now, but afterwards you start to think like, well, how do they bounce back from this? What's next for them? And I think that is what we, the resilience of it is definitely going to be what to watch for. But also I always tip my hat to anybody who organically gets themselves over, the social media work, the extra little tidbits that they do. So, I think it should be fine. But again, it's definitely not all eyes on like, how do they bounce back from that? Because typically when folks have these big moments, these big opportunities, these moments where all the stars align and it doesn't quite sit, we love the American story. We love the comeback kid story. The payoff is monumental for folks' career. But if they don't get that opportunity, then it's definitely to the abyss for them, and we just never hear from them again. And I think from WWE, somebody that stands out to me was Jack Swagger. He was very much primed to be the next big person. Obviously, something had happened on the outside that caused that, but did it ever bounce back for him when everything was aligned and he tripped over his own feet? And he's never, ever been in that conversation again of being like the top guy or the next world champion. So we'll see. Our eyes are set on her and her future right now.
Yeah, and despite everything we said, I do want to say this real quick to throw some props to Mercedes and to Harley. The match itself, we didn't really talk much about the match itself. The match itself was really damn good. It was the only match I saw off the show. As soon as Damian sent that text, I was like, all right, wait, I'm going on right now before I go to bed. Let me rewind it and catch this before I go to sleep. And the match itself was damn good. Like Mercedes did a great job of obviously there's a big experience difference between Mercedes and Harley Cameron. And she definitely got her through that match and did a heck of a job with it. I mean, they went almost 13 minutes. So they had a real, title match on TV, not live. That's a whole nother issue with this show that we got into last week, is what was going to be up with the broadcast and decisions that were made there. But the match itself was really damn good. So I hope it raised Harley's stock there, despite them not willing to go with her at this point. And like I guess we're all saying, time will tell. I didn't see any of the rest of the show. I still haven't even seen the main event yet. I do want to see Tony and Mariah to see how that went down, but I never got around to it this week. I guess the other big there were two other things that were big talking points of this show. One, we talked about in our group chat a lot about, that this was not broadcast live anywhere. Not even in Australia was it broadcast live. We talked last week about, okay, it's not even being shown on Max Live. And obviously it was going up against, the All-Star Saturday night for the NBA, and it couldn't even come on until after that. So I think it started around 11:30 or something.
Yeah,
on the East Coast.
I think it was about because the dunk contest ended 10:30ish.
Yeah,
I think it started at about 10:45. But okay, so real quick, let me just say this from personal experience. I am a fan of the South Sydney Rabbitohs. They are an Australian, Australia-based rugby team, and I stay up to watch their games. So that sometimes start at 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, and the Sunday afternoon games start at midnight. I'm starting to get into the AFL, the Australian Football League, and their games start 10:45, 11, 1 a.m. To grow the game of rugby in America, which of course is the largest English-speaking market, in the world. The rugby league is going to kick off the season next weekend in Vegas at Allegiant Stadium with a doubleheader of rugby. The games are going to be live in Australia. So even though it's an 8 o'clock start or a 6 o'clock start and a 9 o'clock start in Vegas, which is A-okay, it is a 11 a.m. start and then a 1 p.m. 2 p.m. start in Eastern Australia earlier out west, because they want to grow the game in America and not piss off the fans back home.
Right.
I don't understand why it's not live.
Yeah,
what's the point of HBO Max if you can't just throw shit on there anytime that you want? Like everything about the broadcast was baffling with it not being, and that part I went to be is like, even if it wasn't on Max, I would have been like, whoever your TV partner in Australia is, the whole point of coming to Australia is to grow that market. Why wasn't it live there? So the only people that saw it at a reasonable time was the 13-something thousand people in the arena, and everybody else watched it at 2 in the morning.
And the fans was vicious, leaking everything.
As they should have.
As they should.
We woke up Saturday morning, it was all there. And of course, the big talking point was, take a look at this ring. People cannot handle this ring. I think people blew that shit way out of proportion, but my God. Yes, it was a smaller ring. Yes, it was very obvious once you noticed it, that it was an indie style ring. Old QT Marshall claimed 18 by 18. Buddy Murphy said 16 by 16. I'm leaning more towards 16 by 16. That thing looked pretty tiny. I don't think it was an 18 by 18, but either way, that was not quite as a big deal as people wanted to make that out to be.
It's the internet wrestling community IWC. It's like everybody just want to be behind the curtains one way, shape, or form. It is beyond toxic from people trying to make their own reports and making speculation and rumors into fact. And this was just no different for folks to jump on to complain about as if they ever ran a 16, a 18, a 20-inch ring to any capacity. And they're out here complaining. The optics of it doesn't even matter. I mean, yes, it really shows you about their professional wrestlers because they have to, adjust and adapt to it. But like, what the fuck did it matter at a rate?
For us, it didn't.
Like, it didn't. The only thing I think for me as a fan, like the one thing I will ever complain about with a ring is if it is outside and the humidity's up and it's very clear that the ropes are wet and
slippery.
Yes. And as a fan, the first thing you say is, please stay off the ropes. That's the most involved I'm going to get in terms of the infrastructure and the setup and all that other stuff. Other than that, it's not our fault. And then obviously the presentation for the bigger events. We obviously like to talk about that, the hard cam, because that affects us as the viewers and whatnot. But like the damn ring, like the motherfucker's not going out there like torquing it or anything. It was the most. I just cannot believe how long that conversation went all day.
At least 2 days.
All day.
Yep.
At least
Yep.
2 days there was discourse about that damn ring.
I've been a wrestling fan for 40 years, and I've never seen a ring that
Ring
small
like
in my life.
Yeah. Now,
True story. Somebody said that.
I'll take yes. I'll take this moment to also say though. Now, to the point of JD from New York, which is probably the first time we've ever mentioned him here.
Hopefully never
But
again.
I will say this though, and the reason
He's a
why I
Braves
do,
fan. I mean, what do you expect?
I do agree with his stance about AEW should have taken time to to give a public thanks to the folks who gave the ring. And the reason I say that is because, like, yeah, business is business, and this should be handled behind doors, and it is what it is. But I felt that with AEW and since the start of the company, I thought they always were so pro indies and giving love to the indies and scouting from the indies, support of the indies, and making sure that the indies are still healthy. And I think that like a quick tweet to blah blah blah, thank you for this, automatically puts them on the map, especially when you talk about Australian promotions, which are thriving, by the way. But like one quick nod is a quick rub that automatically can grow their followers, their social awareness, their notoriety, anything. I mean, any quick nod of saying like,
but
blah, blah,
it
blah.
doesn't make them
Randy's
bad
broke
for
some
not
ears.
doing it. And that was the dude's point. He was like, well, how come you didn't? And QT's point was in his rebuttal was, well, why should we? We had a business transaction. We paid them.
Correct.
They uploaded it into the deal. Yay, business. But, if
Money's
you
a
want us
thank
to
you.
say thank you, cool. And I say that to say that, like, well, okay, fine. How many times have you tweeted at SoundCloud for hosting our show?
That's funny.
I mean, like, we have a business deal, but do you want to take this time to thank SoundCloud for being an excellent provider?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, not to say that you have to, but it doesn't make you bad if you don't. It was just an odd hill for him to die on.
I get it. If the ring itself would have been donated last second, like, hey, we'll help you guys out.
Yeah,
fine, you can do that.
They
But
didn't come
like
through
you
in
said,
a pinch.
It was a business
upheld
decision.
their end of the deal.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hooray,
that's
commerce.
kind of right. And out of all of the issues that you could have with the show, from a presentation standpoint, it looked taped. It looked, like it was unnaturally hazy in there for some reason. The production value of the set design and stuff like that, it didn't really look big. Like yes, the venue itself looked, rather small, and then of course they had to give you that wide shot to let you know that the thing was packed to the gills. Okay, cool, but like, there are a number of things you can pick apart about the show, but a company having, a business deal that was completely amicable, well, you didn't thank them. Well,
sorry for
Yes.
disconnecting. I saw the tweet that he said, were they going to tweet them? More of an inquiry instead of a accusing of such. So I didn't see the rest of that conversation. So of course, because I was in and out of that conversation in general, I just saw the headline. I was out. So that's probably to my own detriment there. But like, yeah, I only saw the beginning aspect of it of saying like, hey, this is an opportunity to do a good thing. How come you didn't do it? I didn't see anything else out there.
But one would argue that they already did that by reaching out to this company, saying, hey, we're going to be there in a couple months. We want to give you some scratch for letting us borrow a ring.
Yeah,
they said bet. They got paid in kangaroo dollars. A handshake was made. Everybody's good on that. But some asshole in his mom's basement with a Braves hat on wants to go, how come you didn't thank them publicly? We did when the check
Why
cleared.
Braves and not Mets?
He's from Queens. We don't know. I don't know the state Queens, but
again, I agree. Like, business should always be handled behind doors. There's change of dollars, the contract. But I do think in good faith that you can literally take a promotion with 1,000 followers on social media and quickly bump them up to 5 by just thanking them for what they've done. So I think there's a measure of good opportunity that they could have wished on. The fact that they didn't doesn't make them bad, but the fact that they could have.
But to be fair, though,
Like a
the
common courtesy.
tone that was taken was accusatory in nature.
Yes, that's what I'm
Fine,
saying. I
you-
can't speak to that. I didn't see that. I
Okay,
did not
well,
see
fair
that.
enough. But I'm telling you, that's why QT responded, because
Yeah.
the tone that was taken was accusatory in nature, in that, hey, people are complaining about the ring, but you know what? They did you a favor. Well, no, they didn't actually. We paid them for it. That was his response.
And by that point, they had already
Secondly,
been defensive about
well, how come you won't thank them in public? Well, we don't have to, because the fucking check cleared. Sit down.
all right.
I mean,
Enough
but
about the
again,
ring.
Yeah, it's just an odd hill to die on,
Right.
especially since him specifically, does he do that? I mean, if he was so magnanimous about the little people that help him in his endeavors, I wonder how often has he come out of the blue and tweeted, "Hey, this this restaurant on Northern Boulevard is great." And they, we had a catering deal with them for House of Glory, but I just want to step out and say, on behalf of me and me only, you need to go to this taco spot, on Northern Boulevard. If he were to do that, then fucking hey, good for him. Santa Claus, hey, make it work. But I don't remember. Does he? Well, okay. Well, how can you accuse them of not being as gracious as they should be if you don't do the same thing yourself? And then also, what a fucking odd thing to gripe about. Like, just say you hate the company and go.
All right,
real quick, real quick,
Jerry
Will.
talk.
No, we got to get off this ring stuff. We got to get off this ring.
All I'm gonna say about the ring is that it was just funny to look at for 5 seconds. That's it. Like, that's all we had to know. That's it. But it kept going for 2 days.
I mean, it literally did. Like how is this a conversation that won't end?
Off the ring topic.
Yeah.
Two wheel.
Enough about Australia. Enough about
Right now.
Australia. Let's switch gears to DC. Let's talk about Vengeance Day,
Yeah.
NXT's show this past Saturday, before all this happened. Well, technically after it happened, but before it aired.
Before
last
people
Saturday.
realize it happened.
So Vengeance Day was in DC. This was a tight little show. I was very happy with this card. I think if anything for me, it over delivered. I thought it did more than I was expecting going in. Just to quickly hit my highlights. I loved the opener with Steph Fakir and Fallon Henley. Very excited for Stephanie to now be the North American Women's Champion. Very exciting there. And they're definitely giving her the big push, it seems, with that. The tag title match with Nathan Frazier and Axiom against Josh Briggs and Inamura. I was very
Pleasant
pleasantly
surprise.
surprised there. Inamura is really catching on here very quickly with like his sumo spots and really laying stuff into people. He's making a standout position for himself very quickly. And I'll even go with that. I wasn't excited about last week about the triple threat with Obafemi and Theory and Waller, but it was perfect for just getting Obafemi over as the champ. Just making the champ look like the champ. Sometimes that's the only objective of a match, is make the champ look like the big kingpin of the federation. And they did that. I thought a really good job of that on a Saturday night. So I'll leave it. I'll leave it that for me for NXT. Salas, we haven't heard from you in a bit. Thoughts on any highlights from the show?
So you took it right out of my mouth. So I was never a huge Obafemi fan, and I'm not trying to make this based on what we saw last Tuesday. But for Obafemi, now this type of match kind of like won me over based on making me feel like he is a champion. And when I'm looking at him on the next level. Forgive me for saying this, but I don't want him to be compared to like a Omos of how Omos was built on the main roster. I think Obafemi needs to be somebody that is like literally a charismatic person that can get over, and the gimmick that he has as that king, that aura, that is something that can sell on that main roster. That's why I want to project him, not what he's doing now, but what he can eventually do, on the main roster. So, and I think with Austin Theory and Grayson Waller, like those are two pure veterans that know how to work a match. And I'm even a huge Austin Theory fan. I don't think he gets enough credit for what he's done in the ring. Even a couple of years ago, he had that match over John Cena, where I think he's kind of like lost his trajectory where Vince has gone. But Obafemi is somebody that I am very encouraged, cautiously optimistic of what they're going to build him up to, not just where he is as a top person in NXT, but where he's going to go in the main roster.
Yeah, Theory's a Vince guy, and his fall from heaven has definitely been interesting. But before that, though, I mean, anybody they put in front of him, he shined one way or another. Especially with everything that's happening outside of wrestling with him, he still tend to keep his head on straight and focus on the ring stuff. And whether you agree with the gimmick or the wrestler or not, I mean, I thought he quickly becomes a person that you look down the line and say, Dolph Ziggler, The Miz, utility. You're going to be able to put him with anybody. He's already proved it with the vets. So him getting a match with Obafemi makes perfect sense, because he is that person that I would say, like, the litmus test of saying, like, can he go? Is he worth us taking a look for the main roster? And I think so. And then Grayson Waller is still, I say, still needs a little bit more season, a little bit more time, but he's still on his way as well too, because he's made the jump. First thing I want to say really quickly about Vengeance Day is that I thought they did a fantastic job in marketing Vengeance Day, because the first thing I have to be totally honest about was that I was not even aware that it was an NXT show. And I felt like for the longest, they really hid the fact that it was NXT Vengeance Day. I seen marketing, Ticketmaster, always was WWE.
Yeah,
Vengeance
everything says
Day.
WWE now. Yep.
Yeah, and I think that's great, because if you want to get the uncasuals to come see a smaller show in a smaller venue with some names you may not be familiar with, this is a bamboozle trip that will get you in there, and then damn, you're going to be blown off, because out of the gates, much like somebody on our team said, it felt like old school takeover from beginning to end. But anyway, to give you all some time to talk here, the one thing I will say is that Obafemi has been fascinating to watch. I mean, they put the rocket ship on him quickly, and he hasn't disappointed. I mean, for somebody that didn't have any wrestling experience to now you're champion leading the brand, and he has the charisma. He's improving time after time on mic, but he has the look. He's a little bit of an anti-hero, but yet a king per se. He becomes one of the persons, although he uses the catchphrase, I think he's one of the people you said, like, yeah, very Thanos-ish. Like, do you agree with him or not? Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't, but I am watching what he does next, because he's definitely a tyrant on the way. And I think that Obafemi is definitely going to be a force to be reckoned with in WWE for some years. So a great match, a great way to end the show, and so much more to come with him that we could talk about maybe if we have time. But I'm definitely very pro Oba.
So 2 Chainz, you saying the same Thanos was right, Oba was right, huh?
Listen, he is inevitable, as he said. So
there you go.
You want to be on board with him or not, Marcellus, you got no choice.
Yeah,
Damian, anything we haven't touched on?
I'll talk about the Fatal 4-Way with the ladies and say, I said it last week, and I'll eat crow. I said Cora was only put in there to take the pin.
That's right.
But I will say I was pleasantly surprised by her performance in the Fatal 4-Way, because I thought she would have been the weak link as far as in-ring worker is perspective. And she held her own against 3 really top-tier in-ring performers. And she's more than just the mean girl who, thinks at first she was a skater girl, now she's a hater girl. But at the same token, she looks like she belongs now, which I was pleasantly surprised for. So that women's main event, even though it was kind of inevitable, we knew who was going to win, but it was entertaining to get there. And good on Bayley for coming back to NXT. And I say not losing a step, because when you get to the main roster, sometimes the matches are formulaic and go through the motions, especially if it's on Raw or SmackDown. But this felt like Bayley from NXT Horsewomen days. And she knocked it out the park, coming back home, so to speak. So I was very pleasantly surprised by Cora Jade and then the women's main event just in general. Good job all around.
Damien, let me ask a quick question. I'm sorry, I don't mean to jump in with that, because you said something interesting too with Bayley. Did she become the new Natalya now?
God, I hope not.
No, hell no. No.
But I don't mean,
no.
but
You mean the
but-
gatekeeper?
yes.
No.
He's better than that.
No. Natalia's doing community service. Bailey's just out here working. It's not even close. It's not. Stop it. If Marcellus says anything else like that, mute him.
No, but seriously though,
No.
because like, if
Okay,
you think
wait,
about-
okay. Marcellus, to your point, if I ever see Bailey taking on Jakara Jackson, because we all know you love her, in a show where it's just them two one-on-one, then I'll tell you she's Natalia. But until then,
that's fair. That's
no,
fair.
she's not.
That's
No.
fair.
I'm
I'ma
sorry.
hold you
I
to
know we
that.
got to get the break, but no.
I'ma hold you to that,
is
Damien.
relevant on the main roster. She was relevant in the Royal Rumble. She just did the All-Star game. Bailey is a top superstar. Her going to
She had a
NXT
busy week
because of her love for NXT.
She's not the QT
just
Marshall
doing community
of
service.
WWE.
No,
Stop that.
no, she's not.
How does
going down
Jamal
there.
feel about QT Marshall? He's great.
He's not. Yes, but again, no. That's again. Bailey's not QT as well either. Natalia and QT are.
There's
yes,
only
those
one
are
QT. Let's be
equivalent.
clear.
Crab, anything you want to add before break?
Jeez.
I mean, well, long and short of it is no. Like the show, a good, nice, tight, couple hours. Love that early start time. More of that, please. And I hope that I really hope that they come back. When they do come back, I hope they come back to Capital One. I think that if they're going to go the takeover route, the takeovers were bigger, and this obviously the venue, and that choice. And even though they're going to be in New York in a couple weeks, they're going to be at like the MSG Theater and not at a bigger venue. I think that I want to get back to the takeover feeling, and I want it to be bigger than it is. As far as the show goes, the show was absolutely everything you said it was, and 100% on point with that.
There we go. All right, let's do this. Let's go to halftime, a late halftime, since we've got a lot to cover in that first half. We come back, we'll talk a little bit more NXT because we had a bit more discourse this week because there was a name given. So we'll talk about that. And then there's new faces showing up that are definitely, I think, being brought in with the idea of them going on the road to these other buildings and helping out with that as part of their partnership with TNA. So we'll hit all that real quick, and we still got to talk about these WWE ID Championships. So a second half coming, folks. Stay with us. Your Big Old Belt Wrestling Podcast. We'll be back right after this.
Looking to get your brand in front of people who eat, sleep, and breathe entertainment? Big Gold Belt Media is the place to be. We're all about reporting on movies, TV shows, conventions, and everything in between. And we want your brand to be a part of the action. Partnering with us means your sponsorships get featured right in the midst of our content. Plus, we're going to hype you up on all of our social media, connecting you with an audience that loves discovering new things from trusted voices in entertainment. We're easy to find. Just look for us on Big Gold Belt on all your social media platforms. Don't wait, reach out today, and let's start building something amazing together. Your spotlight is waiting here at Big Gold Belt Media, biggoldbelt.com.
Thanks for being with us here, folks, on this fine Thursday night. A lot we've gotten into tonight. We got more to get into here in the second half on your Big Gold Belt Wrestling Podcast. So continuing the NXT talk, last week we talked about Ricky Starks and him showing up and what was going to be the deal with him. And if that damn ring discourse didn't take up a few days, this was a little less, maybe a day and a half. There's probably still people talking about it if I look online right now. But we got a name for Ricky Starks. It took a minute, but he showed up Tuesday on NXT, signed his contract, and they waited till all the way to the end of the segment to see pen put to paper before they revealed Ricky Saints has arrived in NXT. I'm totally fine with this. I don't have an issue with it. I think it's the most minor of minor name changes if they needed to make an adjustment. Lord knows we've had far more ridiculous names out there for NXT people over the years. I mean, Lord knows we have a Steiner on the main roster named Braun Breaker, for God's sake. This is not that severe. This is more the Io Shirai to Io Sky adjustment they made when she moved up. So I'm fine with it. I think Ricky Saints from New Orleans is going to be perfectly okay. Lord knows some people think it's an issue. Is everyone here cool with it, or is it just they're messing with the formula? Damien, I see you're giving a thumbs up.
Yeah, thumbs up.
It.
I'll just say quickly, it plays off New Orleans, like you said, Will.
Where
It
he's
could have
from.
been a lot worse. They could have called him Megatron Jones, like you were talking about. So I'm fine
Yeah.
with it.
Where he's from. I'd say really quickly, the change is interesting to me because I wonder what's the legality behind this. Was it because he didn't? Is there something with AEW? Something with the merch on their end? Is it something in terms of the deal with WWE where they wanted control over it? You know, who knows what it could be. But nonetheless, he's from New Orleans. He wanted to be this. He'll be fine. He'll absolutely be fine. Time to pull up and watch what the man does.
So potentially, because they already have Zoe Stark on the main roster, potentially
Right.
that might have been a
Similar.
reason not to call him Starks.
I'm surprised none of us thought of that last week, that there was Zoe Starks already floating around.
Right.
No
Anyway,
one thinks of Joey
Sell
Stark.
us, get it.
The only reason why I don't like it, and to James, you made a fair point, because it may be some godly things going from AEW to WWE, just like we had from WWE to AEW, because dealing with Adam Copeland, what he's doing. However, I don't like it only from the fact, like Ricky Saints, okay, it is what it is. But I think when you have a property of somebody's own personal name and they're not allowed to use their personal name, that's just something I feel if it already flows by him being a well-known star with it. That's my only kicker. I just think if somebody has their own name, kind of like what Cody Rhodes does, even though Rhodes is not his legit, legal last name, is a name that he's carried from his father's lineage that he is allowed to go from both AEW to WWE. But it's different. I know it's different.
No. Don't forget that wasn't always just available for him in AEW. He had to kind of work around it with Brandy.
He just
So
called Cody.
yeah.
Randy Rhodes.
But in that case, I would just say call him just Ricky. Just call him Ricky.
Oh.
But that's what I was like. Ricky.
Good luck
That's what I would do.
trademarking Ricky. Good luck trademarking just Ricky.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but that's what I do. And
That
I
was
like
a bit guy. That's a statement right there. Just call him Ricky.
Ricky. That's all I want. But
Ricky. There you go.
But I mean, is the Saints going to kill me? No. But I just always want people to take personal property of their own name. That's it.
Are we tripping over Luscious King right now?
Not really.
Well, even if he were Brian Pillman Jr., would we still care?
No.
Yeah,
Okay, well, there you go.
It's a guy we're not as invested in.
Right. I mean,
Yeah, but I
so
mean-
no matter how you slice it, he could have been named after a Pokemon, and we still wouldn't care. So that's just because it's that guy.
But hold on, Marcellus. I mean, Jamal, fair point. People do complain about any and everything that they can, and that came and went, and that's exactly what's going to end up happening here. You'll be mad for about 2 days based on the ring, and then after that, we're just over for it. So,
Well, look, first of all, let's see what the merch looks like before anything.
Yeah. Haven't seen any logo yet or nothing.
You haven't seen the logo exactly because
And then WrestleMania 41 is rumored to be in, or what number are we on? 42? Well, it's rumored to be in New Orleans next year for 2026, right? I mean, rumored, nothing announced.
Yeah.
Well, whenever it is going to be, because no matter where it is, they're going to do a WrestleMania in New Orleans, like at some point in the next 10 years. So, so if that's a thing, then obviously he's definitely said whenever they come back to the Superdome, he wants to headline that thing. Okay, cool. He's from New Orleans. He definitely wants to make that a part of his thing, and I have no problem with that. And obviously, it would be easier for merchandise reasons and legal reasons for WWE to just say like, "Hey, this is your name when you're here." Cool, that's what it is. And also, I think Starks is a big enough guy, even from his indie work, even from his AEW work, where if he leaves WWE after a couple years for whatever reason, and he comes back to being Ricky Starks, people aren't just going to go, who? Now, I think Pillman, for example, may be formerly known as Lexus King. But I don't think anybody is saying like, wait a minute, wasn't he Hideo in a couple years? I don't see that happening because of who he is. Now, obviously, Jordan Grace, didn't change her name, and that's all well and good too. But even if she did, whatever that turned out to be, we're still more interested in her than her name. Even with the changes. If Moose changed his name to Bear so he could be on NXT, we would still be going Bear. And it's just after a while, it just doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter, So
Hey, so Will, question for you.
Yeah. Yes.
Of the suspects that we have named, do you think anybody will be making a name change mid WWE tenure? And that's the likes of Braun Breaker, Ricky
Like if they
Singh.
moved up to the main roster, how like Io Shirai suddenly had to shift it. And
Yeah,
how, Gunther too. Walter became Gunther after being Walter.
Yeah, do you see any of these folks either going back to their, I don't know if it's the legal or just, whatever.
I would hope that we are at the point where that kind of crap's been worked out now. They're giving people the names they're going to have. But it is interesting that we just went through a flurry of Ethan Page showed up as Ethan Page. Stephanie Vaquer showed up as Stephanie Vaquer.
Sean Spears is Sean Spears.
Yeah. Yeah. Didn't become Ty Dillinger again. So, yeah, it's kind of going both ways. I mean,
even Fandango did a thing. He said his name was something a little bit different, right?
He used his TNA name.
Yeah.
TNA name for his appearance there. Yeah, I think there's always a chance. I assume if there's some reason it's being changed at that point, they're only changed it because of some legal reason with like merchandising. Is my guess.
Let me ask this, just related to this. Nick Nemeth, if he comes back to WWE, is he Dolph Ziggler or is he Nick Nemeth?
Well, you know what?
Well,
I think at the rate of what's happening right now with the partnership, I think we just hold on tight. I feel like it's on the way very, very soon. I think we're gonna get
I'll probably get that
in about
answer.
a month.
But let's use this for our transition right here into the TNA deal, because next week they're going to be in Cincinnati for NXT doing their monthly show on the road. So next week in Cincinnati, they're bringing in the TNA Tag Team Champions, the Hardys. The Hardy Boys will be on there next week. Forgot who they're taking on. One of the NXT teams. But they're going to be on
NXT champions.
Week. That's right. Yeah, they're taking on Fraxium. Yeah. Duh.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So there you go. Got the Hardys coming in, which I figured was inevitable from the beginning. My God, finally got a way. They finally got a way to have the Hardys on the show and not have to worry about them being under their contract. So
yeah, I was just going to say, Will, elaborate on that point. And I think the only thing I would say to that is like the liability now. So I'm curious for you. Do you think that they have just overlooked it, or because they're not under contract, this is low risk?
Yeah.
Or do you think they're willing to play ball again?
Absolutely. I'm sure their idea is like, look, we can bring in the Hardys despite, issues they've had with Jeff and Matt in the past, and be like, hey, this is a one-night thing. And you're coming in as part of this partnership, or your contract is with somebody else. If something for some reason doesn't work out that night in Cincinnati, they're just going to tell TNA, okay, we're not using them again. That's it. They can wash their hands of that very quick. And I'm sure TNA is sending folks the idea of like, you need to be on your best damn behavior. And of course, I'm sure. And of course, anyone coming there is hoping like, hey, I don't want to mess this up. I want to be on WWE TV. So yeah, I don't think there's going to be an issue there. Now you mentioned someone else who showed up this past week just to open the show. We had a stare down between Obafemi and X Division champion Moose, who showed up, who infamously for so long was someone NXT was not touching for particular reasons. And
do we know why? I was a little curious about this.
I've always heard the rumor it has to do with his how do I want to put this delicately? I guess the run-ins with the law he had while in the NFL. Let's just put it at that. If we want to Google, people can Google. But anyways, that's the story I've always heard. Why NXT wouldn't ever why there was never a deal there despite tryouts. So people can use the Google machine if they want. But yeah, I think this is another case of that where it's like, okay, there's a way to give people an opportunity without it being full on, okay, we're putting you, under our contract in some way.
Okay.
That's my thought.
I mean, here's my thing. It goes back to AEW with Nick Gage, and it's just like, it's a good idea in theory. We like it as fans, and then it seems like the network got involved, and it obviously because he pushed the limit, but also there was more to that considering that his past had came into question. I think for the sake of Moose and the Hardys, I mean, maybe the contracts is very interesting in terms, or the deal, should I say, is very interesting about how the usage could be done. But at the end of the day, the optics is still the optics. They're on WWE programming, so that and who's on it, they're still accountable for that, because they have them on there. So maybe the vetting process, maybe the background checks, maybe all of that is looked at in a different light now with how the agreement is worded. So I say all that to say
now, so it could totally be different now compared to how
that's a good point. Yeah,
I
say that to say, Will, I think when you said the Hardys coming, I felt like you threw a Hail Mary there, and you was very optimistic that it could possibly land as a touchdown. But I think now, them being on TV, them even being promoted in the capacity they've been promoted, that everything is on the table now. So yes, the Nick Nemeth is on the way, one way or another. We have to see it coming, and so much more. So that to me, seeing Moose was definitely the exclamation point at the end of the sentence, saying like, okay, yeah, everything's on the table outside of Tessa Blanchard.
That was going to be my next. That was actually going to be my next question. Since
that's the $25,000 question.
Since they've been trumped out. What's his face? Hulk Hogan. It's like, all right, if you can put Hulk Hogan on my screen, what's to stop you from putting Tessa Blanchard on my screen?
I thought you were going to just call her Hulk Hogan again. I was going to die.
The interesting thing with Tessa will be because she's had like people who are currently on the roster like publicly say stuff about her.
Yeah.
Or
Chelsea Green
Chelsea Green, yes, has specifically said things recently. So there's not like past heat. There's definitely like current heat. So I don't know, but I think it's an easy way for them to move tickets for these shows that are outside the Performance Center, like that Cincinnati this week. I wouldn't be surprised to bring some TNA folks into the Madison Square Garden show at the theater in March. So Crab, anything you want to add in here?
Why wasn't this the partnership with AEW that we always wanted?
That's another $30,000 question.
I mean, like, was it really that hard to just do that? And again, the upper echelon of TNA, for what it's worth, who arguably had a better roster then than they do now, but the upper echelon of TNA is, a pretty good get for NXT. Yeah, fine, fair enough. They didn't have to have them take over AEW. It could have been a mid-card thing. But but damn, this is it just seems so simple to do it this way. And it's not a takeover, it's not an invasion, it's this very selective partnership. Yeah. They're bringing in who they want to bring in, seeing them who they're sending out who they want to send out. And we don't get Ava in a goofy ass Jaguars jacket, dancing with Tony Schiavone. I mean, like, it's just like it really pisses me off that we have to sit through that.
Yeah, and tomorrow night, tonight, Obafemi will be on Impact. I forget that Impact's on Thursday. It's Obafemi's showing up on Impact to see what's up with Moose. So it's going both ways. You got the NXT champion showing up at Impact. Actually, and Impact tonight is taping at Full Sail for the first time. So there's lots of interesting stuff happening.
A lot of interesting things happening on both sides. And you can definitely see the mutual obviously respect, but how mutually beneficial it is for both companies in that, TNA fans get a taste of the NXT audience. NXT fans get to see selected personnel that could be inserted and pay dividends. Yeah. Obviously Jordan Grace, came over, but the fact that they know who she is now because of the TNA thing, and the fact that Moose is there, or the fact that the Hardys are going to be there, would have been cool to see Speedball or NXT, but that's obviously not going to be a thing. So it's just like, damn, like, come on, AEW, like, why? But,
I want to say, go ahead.
No, I'm just going to say, like, just in general, I really like the partnership. It's definitely created interest because even if you are tired of the AEW roster, because there is a finality there, you can only slice that pie so many times before you go, okay, well, I've seen this before. Then Moose shows up. So, creating moments That's what it's all about. And both TNA, by God, and they will never die. But TNA and AEW have been doing that, and it's been working well for both of them.
All right, really quickly. Now let's get some funnies in here. Out of 100%, what is the chance that Tessa Blanchard shows up in 2025 on NXT programming?
65.
Less than 10.
15%.
I'll go 40. I think I think with Moose showing up this week, the chances just went up a bunch with him.
Yeah, that's my take too. One thing I want to say,
if he would have showed up, I'd be like, now it's like stuff's in play. Stuff that you thought was off the table's in play now.
Yeah. Three things I want to say really quickly. First thing
Say it again.
We're gonna say something.
Well, he was going to say something.
I'm going to say talent comes over. I want to. Sorry. Am I back? Yeah. All right. Yeah. So one thing I want to say is when TNA talent comes over, I want to see things get unpredictable. I definitely want to make sure that we're not just seeing TNA talent coming over and they're putting NXT folks over. So I definitely want to see things get super unpredictable. Like a Moose win would blow our minds in terms of they really went there. So I would love to see things get more and more like that. Second thing I want to say was when you talk about in the world of unpredictability and Jordan Grace being in WWE, I like to always go back to one of our very first interviews with her. And you know, we got out of the wrestling interview game some time ago, but she was very adamant that WWE was not the end goal for her. So you have to think about how things have adapted over time for her to want to refocus where she wanted to land, because, you know, she easily could have just keep cashing checks at TNA. And matter of fact, she's enough of a draw for people to even want to go there, if you ask me. So seeing her go there and taking a contract, and that's outside of the agreement, is definitely interesting for the landscape of NXT and the appeal of NXT. And then the last thing, which I forgot, so we can just move on to the next thing. Oh, I know I was going to say. So when we were talking about this years ago about WWE's global dominance with NXT, you know, Europe, NXT Japan, all these different things. I think when we were about to talk about the ID title, I think we have to really talk about that. Well, having those different branches of NXT never really got up and running outside of UK. Is this a good secondary or complementary action to doing what they initially always wanted to do by having the LFG, to having a TNA partnership, to having an ID, and then all that feeds into NXT, and they still got folks coming from the IRL. So like, are they truly dominating the world of professional wrestling from the developmental standpoint and checking every single box? What is left for them to, at this point, have some type of net on? That's my take.
All right. So speaking about that,
we talked about that about a month ago, actually.
Yeah.
Well.
Oh yeah. Since we're getting close to our hour, let's get this last little piece in, since it ties into that. The last little bit of news that happened this week that's really interesting. So we've been talking about WWE ID. Triple H posted a photo with championships. Very clearly a women's WWE ID title and a men's WWE ID title. So before the thing's even like, we don't even have the Evolve show yet, there's going to be WWE ID titles. And what was revealed was this: the first WWE ID champions will be determined in a tournament across the top independent wrestling promotions. The WWE ID championships will then be defended on the Indies, is what the WWE ID account posted. Don't have any dates yet or any more details other than that. But they made it clear these are ID titles to be defended and utilized on the Indies, not on Evolve. So hold that thought, because I'm guaranteed Evolve titles are coming soon enough once that show starts up next month. But here's my thought. Let's quickly go around. Is adding these WWE ID titles a good or bad thing for the Indies? Not talking WWE ID here. The Indies they work with, where these titles are going to be on the show and part of things. Sounds really complicated to me in some ways.
10 seconds here. Shout out to Nova Pro. Because back in our glory days in independent wrestling in this area, there was one thing that we always wanted at that promotion was a goddamn championship, and the promoter was so against it. And I think the only thing that we got to latch on to was Nope. The Cedric Alexander championship that he had that ran on the
That was from the Carolinas. Yeah, wherever that was.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
So to me, I say beyond the draw of folks being ID, but them having a championship automatically creates storylines, creates interest, and definitely a bit of notoriety to whoever it may be and where they go. And also the check just got bigger because guess what? They get to bring that along, and you ain't getting a hot dog and a handshake now. You got to clear that check because all eyes are watching. And certainly don't want that to go back to WWE hearing that you got done wrong and you brought all that attention to them. So good for them. I like the idea.
I'll make it quick and say that it's not like these shows are going to be untaped. Every promotion that they work with has some kind of streaming deal or has some kind of distribution deal. And even if the WWE obviously knows exactly what they're getting out of this because they've curated this thing from the bottom up. They know the companies that they're going to work with. They obviously have a say in where these titles are going to be defended. They know who they want to put the belt on. They know who they want their opponents to be. This, of course, is nothing for them to create the belt, but the opportunity is multifold across wherever the indies take them. I think that it's absolutely a good idea because the second somebody walks in the door, champion versus champion is a storyline that writes itself. And then, of course, the indies, as far as storylines goes, not really like a sticking point of the indies. But the bottom line is that this person is going to be in this show. Now this show is a must-see show, whoever that is. And as soon as they lose the belt, former WWE, I mean, think about it. They put any association with any company anywhere as soon as they can. So why wouldn't they do that? And we've already had precedent before where companies would send their indie champion out. I don't see how this is any different than Matt Cardona being the champion of the internet. This is just a more legitimate way of doing it. It absolutely makes sense. And the only thing that's really terrible about it is they can't go everywhere with it. But yeah, would love to see it happen.
I'm just gonna say.
Oh, go, Dave.
Go.
I'm about to say for me, it's this is real quick. I don't think this really kind of like messes up anything. It's just an interesting twist. I think indies will be indies where if somebody wants to help build something and create something, that's just more opportunities for more wrestlers to be out there to be seen. But we all know it's going to end up at WWE. But it's the fact of just giving the opportunity for more people for different areas. So I don't think it hurts at all.
No, and quicker, I'll just say, we talked about feeder systems in the past, using these indies as a feeder system. Now you have a title that is the first title on the rung potentially to WWE. And if these promotions are tied to a school, this is going to help enrollments of said school or to said school. So, because remember back in the day, people would appear on NXT once and say, as seen on NXT to get a better rate. So, like you said, Two James, the checks got to clear a little bit faster now because it's an ID situation. But I'm looking forward to see how wrestling school enrollments go up that are tied to the ID versus non-wrestling schools that aren't tied.
Yeah, I mean, the pipeline, it wasn't, the pipeline was nebulous before. You had to know somebody to know somebody. Now the road is paved.
Yes.
Yeah. There's clear entry points to get in there. With that said, how soon before we hear reports of someone on the indies being like, I'm in line for the ID championship. I can't be doing a job tonight.
That don't work for them, brother.
I'm next up. I got the word from Dave.
A lot of people contacts are going to be checked at the door.
Truth.
That's that.
Yeah, and because it's not just about the belt. You got to be that person. So, you can do a death match in the middle of North Dakota if you want. But if you want to get into that WWE train, you need a WWE gimmick. So, I mean, that's the thing. It's not even showing up to the club. You got to come correct to even stand in line. I don't know how you're getting in with those shoes.
You got to follow that dress code.
Exactly. Exactly.
Very true. Very true. All right. There we go. This has been a heck of a show tonight. We had a lot to cover, but we got all through it. Since we have the boss man here tonight, before I do the rundown of all the plugs and everything, Big Gold Belt Media here. What is going on? We had Captain America last week. What's going on? What is happening on Big Gold Belt Media in the entertainment realm?
What can I talk about? Let's see. Reacher is out today. So Reacher season 3. Definitely a hot and popular show on Prime Video. Some interviews available for that. Disney's and Pixar's Win or Lose is also on Disney Plus. That was also very good as well. I think only 2 episodes are available of the 8. It's actually Pixar's first show, which is a surprise. And in the movies, I believe we have The Monkey available this week. Seeing that, I didn't do my review yet, but the movie's batshit crazy. Like it's more comedy than horror. So for your horror enthusiasts, looks like you got back-to-back weeks with good horror films that really was driven on its comedy. Last week you had what is it called? Oh my God, why is it?
Companion came out recently.
Hard Eyes.
Hard Eyes. There we go.
It was a slasher movie that came out recently.
Yeah, a comedy slasher. Yeah, and then now The Monkey.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Other than that, I think you'll be good. I'll give you enough to watch for a little while. We'll see what's up next.
There you go.
I got some more to share. Oh, I forgot that movie. Queen of the Ring?
Yes.
It comes out next month. Yeah.
Looking forward to it.
We'll be having some content on that very soon. So
there you go. Keep an eye on Big Gold Belt Media. There you go. It's always more than just wrestling here. Wrestling, movies, comics, and more, as we say. So absolutely. So they run down all the plugs then of everything. So on social media, of course, it's at Big Gold Belt across the board, where we're talking Twitter, X, Instagram, Blue Sky, all that. Always at Big Gold Belt. On the web, it's biggoldbelt.com. Where you can find everything with all these interviews we're talking about, all the various feeds of what's going on between wrestling and movies and all that good stuff. Big Old Belt Media, your one-stop shop. We're here each and every Thursday night streaming live, 8 p.m., breaking down pro wrestling. So we are so glad you were here with us tonight, streaming live on X, over on Twitch, over on YouTube, all those platforms. The video feed lives on YouTube. So if you came in late and looking to see the beginning of the show, that is on YouTube, and the audio version resides there too, along with on all podcast platforms. Wherever your favorite podcast version is, the podcast audio version will drop a little later tonight. So your Big Old Belt Wrestling podcast is available in so many different ways. But until then, we'll be back next Thursday, 8 p.m. Chop it up again. We'll see what we got to talk about as far as happens the next week in wrestling. This weekend is the first week in a bit where we don't have any can't think of any major shows off the top. Unless I'm forgetting something. So, I don't know what we'll be going to do next week, but there will be something, of course. I'm sure. As always.
I think Revolution's coming up soon.
Yeah, that's, I think, the first weekend of March.
Yeah, that's next weekend.
An Elimination Chamber. Will be next weekend, we'll be going into Elimination Chamber. So, we'll definitely have that to talk about. Hell, we've had Royal Rumble people pick their opponents. So, we got to get in some of that WWE stuff next week. Definitely some WWE stuff to cover between that and Elimination Chamber coming up. That's going to be going down in Toronto the following weekend. So there you go, folks. We'll see you next week. Hang in there. Check out all our stuff online. Glad to have the whole crew here tonight. And we'll talk to you next week.